Our top story remains to be that all-important meeting that took place between Prime Minister and leaders from Jammu and Kashmir and it lasted for over 3 hours, remember, at his residence on Thursday. At the meeting, he spoke of removing Dil Ki Duri as well as Dilli Ki Duri. The meeting was attended by 14 political leaders from 8 parties, and Prime Minister Modi's sources close to him said that statehood would be restored, but at an appropriate time. He also urged the parties to get on board with the demilitation or the withdrawing of the assembly constituencies to enable elections in the state. He also said that delimitation has to happen so that polls can take place in Jammu and Kashmir. In fact, he tweeted a little later saying that our priority is to strengthen grassroots democracy in Jammu and Kashmir. Delimitation has to happen at a quick pace so that polls can happen and Jammu and Kashmir gets an elected government that gives strength to the development trajectory in the area. In fact, later we had Home Minister Amit Shah also tweet about it. He said that we are committed to ensure all-round development for Jammu and Kashmir. The future of Jammu and Kashmir was discussed, and the delimitation exercise and peaceful elections are important milestones in restoring statehood and promise in Parliament.
प्रधानमंत्री जी ने कहा कि जम्मू कश्मीर में लोकतांत्रिक प्रक्रिया से जुड़े अगले महत्वपूर्ण कदम यानी विधानसभा चुनाव की तरफ हमें मिलकर जाना है। इसके लिए डीलिमिटेशन की प्रक्रिया को तेजी से पूरा करना होगा ताकि हर क्षेत्र, हर वर्ग को पर्याप्त राजनीतिक प्रतिनिधित्व विधानसभा में प्राप्त हो सके।
Meanwhile, the National Conference leader Omar Abdullah asked why is Jammu and Kashmir being singled out for delimitation. He also said that the Kashmiri leaders want full statehood restored. The PDP leader Mehbooba Mufti said that they would struggle peacefully for restoration of Article 370.
One of the significant sort of announcements appears to have been this commitment to restoring statehood. Tell us a little bit about that. What exactly was said, and do you see that as an important first step?
Well, the Home Minister reiterated, as he said, his commitment that was made to Parliament and subsequently as well, and that was again reinforced by the Prime Minister, that Jammu and Kashmir has to be given statehood. The point that some of the people who spoke made was that it has to be complete statehood. It can't be a truncated state.
Right.
It cannot be a state which is further stripped of powers. Jammu and Kashmir will have to be a state like West Bengal is, or like Maharashtra is, or Madhya Pradesh is.
Right.
And one of the points that was made, and made quite forcefully, is that Jammu and Kashmir must have its cadre restored to it. If
Right.
Jammu and Kashmir is a state, then why should its officers come from the UT cadre or any of those other sort of setups? J&K traditionally had a J&K cadre in the IAS and IAPS and elsewhere, and that cadre should be restored.
Constitutionally, democratically, peacefully struggle करेंगे, चाहे महीने लग जाए या साल लग जाए, हम जम्मू कश्मीर में 370 बहाल करेंगे, क्योंकि ये हमारी आइडेंटिटी की बात है। ये हमें पाकिस्तान से नहीं मिला था, ये हमारे मुल्क हिंदुस्तान ने, जवाहरलाल नेहरू ने, इसमें कोई कॉम्प्रोमाइज नहीं होगा। इसके अलावा हमने कहा कि आप चाइना के साथ बात कर रहे हैं, मैंने उनको कॉम्प्लीमेंट किया, आपने पाकिस्तान से बात की, इन्फिल्ट्रेशन कम हुई, बहुत अच्छी बात है। और जम्मू कश्मीर में जो सख्ती है, जो पकड़ दकड़ है, जो मारपीट का माहौल है, जिस तरह से भी बात की नहीं होती है तो उसको UAPA लगाया जाता है।
You were detained for what, a year or so. The PSA was put against you. You were taken away from your family. All of that took place. We know what happened in Jammu and Kashmir. No internet, 370 went. The state was bifurcated, etc., etc. Today you were on the same platform as the Prime Minister and the Home Minister. Before the meeting started and during the meeting, what went on in your mind?
No, to be very honest, we as politicians can't afford to be personal or reflect personal pain or personal fettering of liberties that happen. It comes and goes in a democracy. It happens. And per se, I wish it had not happened, but it,
so that's
it did not
interesting.
simply enter my mind.
Sajjad, it wasn't in your mind. You're through with that detention period and you're looking at the future right now, right?
Yeah, hopefully, yes. Let's hope so.
So that's very pragmatic.
There is a lot of pain over there, and we will have to work. And you see, you have to understand is that if we have to remove that pain, if we have to lessen the pain, there is one reality which you can't change, and that is there is a union government which is elected until 2024, and they are the only ones who can effect change on the ground. That's the reality, whether we like them or we don't. They are the ones who are the.
All right, the other big story we are tracking is, of course, coronavirus. There are 3 signs of concerns which have shown up on Thursday, but with a caveat that it is too early to say that these trends will continue. Trend number 1, that the percentage change in the cases in the last 2 days has been the highest since the peak of the second wave. On the 7th of May, Maharashtra's trend of the average daily cases have risen for the very first time since the second wave decline began about 56 days ago. That was about end April. And Delhi is the only major state or union territory which has seen a rise in the last 1 week as well in the 7-day moving average compared to the week ago. The change is only 10 cases more than the previous week, but noteworthy. And Maharashtra has been reporting the highest number of COVID-19 cases in the country since the beginning of the pandemic, but the cases had begun to come down since the second wave hit in April. However, with the emergence of the new Delta Plus variant and the rise in cases, the state may have to review its level of unlock plan.
This is Dadar in Mumbai, one of the most crowded areas, and even with restrictions in place, crowds are normal. But this is a worry because for the first time, Maharashtra's average daily cases have seen an uptick since end April, when the second wave cases started declining. The average daily cases had touched a low of 8,847 on Tuesday, but stayed above the 8,900 mark for the last 2 days. As a result, Maharashtra may delay its unlocking plan, especially in Mumbai, where local trains, the city's lifeline, malls and restaurants are still closed. And the Delta Plus variant is the big new worry, which the state cabinet discussed on Wednesday. At 21, Maharashtra has the highest number of Delta Plus variant cases in India.
वैक्सीनेशन जब तक 70-80% लोगों को नहीं हो जाएगा, रिस्क नहीं लिया जा सकता। आज भी जिस तरह से ओपन अप किया गया है, जो लेवल बनाए गए हैं, लेवल में भले ही हम लोग नीचे हों, फिर कुछ एडिशनल रिस्ट्रिक्शन रखा गया, जिसकी वजह ही ये है कि यहाँ पे फ्लोटिंग पॉपुलेशन बड़े पैमाने पे आता है।
So what should one look out for this variant or any other symptom associated? Basically, symptomology is not going to change. Only thing to look out for is to present early.
Mumbai saw a jump in the test positivity rate as well, with 863 new cases on Wednesday. While there were more tests conducted, the city is still holding back when it comes to relaxing restrictions. The centre has asked Maharashtra to be alert when it comes to the Delta Plus variant. The Delta variant had caused havoc during the second wave, and the Delta Plus variant is a further mutation which could be even more virulent, transmissible, or both. The devastating impact of the second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic is perhaps an indicator of what the third wave could bring, especially if the virus is more virulent and more transmissible. The government believes a cautious approach would be the best way forward, which is why it's in favor of keeping restrictions in place just for a while longer, and this has been discussed in the cabinet as well. In Mumbai, with camera person Sanjay Mandal, Saurabh Gupta, NDTV.
Moving on, there are 4 FIRs now and 6 people arrested, including a lady who shared the username password of the CoWIN app to generate vaccination certificates, according to the police. And sources there indicate that the vials are from Gujarat, but still to be ascertained if it's vaccine that was administered or something else. More than 2,000 people have fallen victim to fake COVID-19 vaccination camps in Mumbai so far. And the vaccine fraud, not just limited to Mumbai. We've been bringing you the shocking report from Kolkata as well that has turned rather murky now. And vaccines given at not 1 but 3 vaccination camps were actually fake. Not Covishield or Covaxin, but guess what? An antibacterial, generally used for UTI cases. At least that's what the Kolkata police found. Stocks of all the alleged fraudulence office not far from where the Trinamool MP Mimi Chakrabarti had gone to get the jab on Tuesday. That initially raised the alarm.
Dibanjan Deb wanted to be an IAS officer, never made it, so took a shortcut. But what seemed to be a bizarre lark is now turning into a dangerous scam. Those vaccinated at camps he held, posing as an IAS officer and top brass of Kolkata Municipal Corporation, did not get anti-COVID jabs. Not even Trinamool MP Mimi Chakraborty, who was chief guest at the Tuesday camp.
আর আমি ভ্যাকসিনেশন নেওয়ার পরই আমার খটকাটা লাগে যে আমার কোনো মেসেজ আসে না। এবার আমার মেসেজ আসে না, আমি বলছি চলে আসবে হয়তো, আমি বললাম যে আমার সার্টিফিকেটটা। আই ইমিডিয়েটলি স্টপ দ্য এন্টায়ার থিং। আমি বুঝতে পারি যে পুরো জিনিসটা একটা ভুল দিকে যাচ্ছে থিং, অ্যান্ড আমি প্রশাসনের সাহায্যে ইমিডিয়েটলি পুলিশের সাহায্যে তাকে অ্যারেস্ট করিয়ে দিই।
Kolkata police have confirmed the seizure from the fraudster's office of several vials of an antibacterial injection used apparently for urinary tract infections. Police also recovered fake Covishield labels which were pasted on those vials. Kolkata Corporation's chairman says all victims will be given genuine jabs, but politics has reared its head.
আপনারা ভাবছেন যে কেউ খোঁজ নেয়নি? সব খোঁজ নেওয়া আছে, সব জানা আছে। এতদিন অন্যান্য বিষয়ে সিন্ডিকেট চলতো, এখন ভ্যাকসিনের সিন্ডিকেট চলছে। তো এটা পুরো সাজানো, পুরো পার্টির লোকে যুক্ত আছে, এটা একটা পুরো সিন্ডিকেট চলছে, কালোবাজারি চলছে ভ্যাকসিন নিয়ে।
উদ্দেশ্যটা কি? হঠাৎ করে উনি নিজের টাকা খরচা করে ভ্যাকসিনেশন ক্যাম্প করতেই বা গেলেন কেন? এগুলো সব পুলিশ এনকোয়ারি করছে। দেখ, যেটা দরকার হবে, যদি ভ্যাকসিনেশন শিওর থাকে তাহলে তাদের একটা রেজিস্ট্রেশনের ব্যবস্থা করতে হবে। আর যদি ভ্যাকসিনেশন ভুয়ো হয় তাহলে তাদের আবার ভ্যাকসিন করতে হবে।
The municipal corporation is probing loopholes, if any, in its system of permitting NGOs to vaccinate. Police say their find today could be the tip of an iceberg. Monideepa Banerjee, NDTV.
The increasing water levels in the Ganga River in Uttar Pradesh's Prayagraj town have thrown up a challenge for authorities. How to deal with bodies now which were buried in shallow graves by the river that are now coming unstuck. Now, photographs and visuals taken by local journalists at the different Ganga Ghats in Prayagraj over the last 2 days showed some bodies being fished out of the river by authorities.
As water levels rise in the Ganga River with the advancing monsoon, a fresh headache in UP's Prayagraj. Multiple bodies buried in shallow graves by the river, many of them allegedly during UP's devastating second COVID wave in April and May, are coming unstuck as the sand erodes in the rain. Some are now even floating in the river. One such body was found with a tube in the mouth.
नली लगी हुई थी कि एक बीमार आदमी था कोई, उसके परिवार वाले जैसे अपना वो पीछा छुड़ाने के लिए अपना यहाँ ऐसे तैसे छोड़ छाड़ के चले गए। नहीं तो भाई अब उनको अपने सौ से अपने परिजन से भय हो गया, क्या था अब हम तो बता नहीं पाएंगे।
Images like these from Prayagraj and other UP towns by the Ganga had made international headlines in April and May. The Yogi Adityanath government denied these bodies were of unaccounted COVID victims and claimed burying bodies by the river is a UP tradition.
कटान में जहाँ भी ऐसी चीजें दिखाई पड़ रही हैं, निगम स्वयं निगम के वहाँ के जो जोनल अधिकारी हैं वो मैंने भी कुछ जगह पे दाह संस्कार किया है।
For now, Prayagraj officials say the focus is to cremate bodies getting exposed in the rains. With Nitin Gupta in Prayagraj, this is Alok Pandey, NDTV.
The Ordnance Factory Board workers have threatened to go on an indefinite strike from the 19th of July. Around 74,000 employees are set to go on strike after almost 2 years. The OFB, that is the Ordnance Factory Board, is set to witness yet another indefinite strike, and all the 3 recognized federations in the 41 factories are set to go on strike. What exactly is the reason behind it? Well, they sent a letter to the Defence Minister Rajnath Singh announcing their decision to go on the strike after Centre's decision to split the OFB into 7 corporations. Let's talk to Rajiv Ranjan now, who's bringing us the latest on the story. Rajiv, what exactly is it that the workers are protesting against?
देखिए, सरकार का ये कहना है कि जितने ऑर्डिनेंस फैक्ट्री बोर्ड हैं, उनके जो प्रोडक्ट हैं वो क्वालिटी जो है उनके कॉस्ट ज्यादा होते हैं, लेकिन इनके जो काम करने वाले यहाँ जो कर्मचारी हैं तकरीबन 74,000 कर्मचारी, इनका ये कहना है कि सरकार का जो आरोप है बिल्कुल सही नहीं है और जो ऑर्डिनेंस फैक्ट्री बोर्ड को जो 7 कॉर्पोरेशन में जो तब्दील किया जा रहा है, चेंज किया जा रहा है, इसके ये पक्षधर नहीं है। इनका ये कहना है कि इससे जो है पूरा ऑर्डिनेंस फैक्ट्री बोर्ड जो है वर्स्ट हो जाएगा, खराब हो जाएगा और इनकी नौकरी पर खतरा है। आपको ये बता दें कि पूरे देश भर में जो है 41 जो ऑर्डिनेंस फैक्ट्री बोर्ड है और ये फोर्सेज के लिए, आर्म फोर्सेज के लिए, सेना के लिए, एयरफोर्स के लिए 150 से 200 प्रोडक्ट बनाते हैं, जिसमें जूता से लेकर टैंक से लेकर मिसाइल, राइफल और बॉम्ब तरह के हथियार। इनका ये कहना है कि ऐसे सेंसिटिव वेपन्स बनाते हैं सेना के लिए ये, और आप इसको प्राइवेटाइज हाथ में दीजिएगा, बड़े कंपनियों को दीजिएगा, तो ये देश हित में नहीं है और न ही जो ये लोगों के हित में। इनका ये कहना है कि सरकार जो है इसके बजाय जो है जो ऑर्डिनेंस फैक्ट्री बोर्ड में मॉडर्नाइज करे और इनके जो स्टाफ जो काम करे, कर्मचारी जो उनको फेथ मिले, तो हालात बेहतर हो सकते हैं। जी।
और राजीव, इसके बारे में क्या ये डिसाइड हो गया है कि ये स्ट्राइक होने वाली है कि और कोई मीटिंग्स हो सकती हैं जिसमें कुछ सोल्यूशन निकल सके सरकार के साथ?
देखिए, इनका साफ तौर पर कहना है कि 27 जून को हालांकि एक मीटिंग कर रहे हैं, लेकिन इन्होंने बाकायदा ये कॉल दे दिया है 19 जुलाई से ये लोग स्ट्राइक पर जाएंगे, इंडेफिनिट स्ट्राइक पर जाएंगे कि अगर सरकार अपने फैसले वापस नहीं लेती है। जो 3 इनके जो है रिकॉग्नाइज जो है ये यूनियन है, फेडरेशन है, इन्होंने फैसला लिया है कि 19 जुलाई से जाएंगे, स्ट्राइक पर जाएंगे। साथ में हालांकि 27 तारीख को जून को एक बैठक कर रहे हैं जिसमें और आगे की रणनीति पर चर्चा किया जाएगा। और ना केवल ये लोग, आपको ये बता दें कि जितने सारे जो ऑर्डिनेंस फैक्ट्री हैं, डेली ये लोग जब जाते हैं सुबह 8 बजे, तो डेली गेट के बाद किसी भी ऑर्डिनेंस फैक्ट्री के गेट पर चले जाइए, सुबह आपको प्रोटेस्ट होते हुए दिख जाएगा। लोग अपने अपने तरीके से विरोध की आवाज उठा रहे हैं। इनका ये कहना है कि मजदूरों को दबाने की जो सरकार कोशिश कर रही है वो किसी भी सूरत हाल में करते बर्दाश्त नहीं करेंगे। उनका जो प्रोटेस्ट जो राइट है, उस राइट का इस्तेमाल करते हुए सरकार पर यह भी आरोप लगा रहे हैं कि जब सरकार से उनकी बातचीत चल रही थी कंपनी का ऑर्डिनेंस फैक्ट्री बोर्ड को लेकर, तो अचानक क्या हुआ कि 16 जून को जो है कैबिनेट डिसीजन लेती है कि इसको कॉर्पोरेशन में तब्दील कर दिया जाएगा। तो ये सरकार के फैसले के खिलाफ है और सरकार को कह रही कि आपने जो फैसला लिया है कॉर्पोरेशन में तब्दील करने का ऑर्डिनेंस फैक्ट्री बोर्ड को, इस फैसले को वापस ले आप। जी
राजीव जी, सारी जानकारी देने के लिए बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। दैट वाज माय कॉलीग राजीव रंजन गिविंग अस द डिटेल्स अबाउट व्हाट एग्जैक्टली इज द इशू ऑल अबाउट। देयर विल बी अ मीटिंग बिटवीन द वर्कर्स, द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन देयर एंड द गवर्नमेंट, एंड दे आर होपिंग देयर विल बी अ सॉल्यूशन दैट विल कम बाय सून. But moving on now to the other big development coming in today, and Rahul Gandhi will be meeting party MLAs from his Punjab unit today. Remember, the Congress unit in Punjab has been a reason for worry for the Congress leadership as well. We've had very open remarks and discontent being shown on both sides. This is basically 2 factions. There is a Sidhu faction, and then there is that which backs Captain Amrinder Singh. Sunil Prabhu joins us for the very latest. Now, Sunil, so much has really happened in the past couple of weeks when it comes to the crisis that the Congress party in Punjab is undergoing right now. Last we heard was that we had Captain Amrinder Singh here, still unclear. Did he meet with the leadership? Any messaging there? What exactly is happening there?
Well, Sonal, firstly, they're not just 2 factions, there are many more factions. So, Sidhu is one, and he's a force in himself. But there are many other MLAs who have also have a whole host of issues. Having said that, will Captain Amrinder be removed? Unlikely. That's not going to happen. What they have done is asked him to act on the party manifesto and various decisions. For example, to ensure that the Dalits, in particular the scheduled castes, their demands which have been made as part of the manifesto, and to see better representation, better committees, better things get percolated down to them. The second, of course, is about the sand mafia, the transport mafia, to take action on that. The emotive issue of the sacrilege, to take and see that the people who are behind that are booked. and then most importantly, to ensure that the middle class, in particular, they get free power, the power purchasing agreements, all those are addressed. So broadly, these are the issues that Captain Amrinder has to act. The High Command hopes that by acting on these, Captain Amrinder, by acting on these manifesto promises, will be able to placate a large section of the party MLAs and rally around them and say that, look here, even we'll give a face saver for Mr. Sidhu to say that, look here, I've been able to work and people's, and that is how we can go forward. Yes, there will be a replacement for the PCC chief. Who will it be? Will it be a Dalit or will it be Sidhu? That is something that will have to be worked out. But it seems most likely that it will be somebody from the scheduled caste community, given the fact that the Akalis and the BSP have tied up. So a lot of issues, but every day they delay. Rahul Gandhi meeting MLAs, and this continues, has been continuing now for last 3 weeks, is a saga in itself, and is just hurting the Congress party day in and day out in the state of Punjab.
All right, so unlikely to have a change in the Chief Minister of Punjab, but likely to have a change in the Punjab Congress Committee, that is the head of the state there, responsible for elections. Thanks. That's something we'll watch out for. Lots of meetings still to happen as the day progresses. We'll get you the very latest, but on the other side of this very quick. Welcome back. Now, mystery over the fake COVID test during the Kumbh in Haridwar continues, with police conducting probe into the alleged scam of over 1 lakh fake tests to meet the target of 50,000 tests every day set up by the Uttarakhand High Court during the holy month in April. Akshay Dongre has this report.
The extent of fake COVID tests at Haridwar Kumbh Mela is unravelling. This tin shed is the corporate address of the lab Max Corporate Services that had the highest number of test reports, 1.18 lakh. Clearly, no kind of background checks appear to have been conducted.
इस प्रकार का जो है कमियां थी, उस पे जो है उनका एड्रेस को लेकर के मतलब विरोधाभासा स्थिति निकल रही थी, और ICMR एक्रेडिटेशन, एम्पैनलमेंट का प्रोसेस, इस प्रकार का कई मुद्दे हैं. तो ये सभी मुद्दों को देखने के बाद जब कन्विंसिंग लग रहा था कि इसमें जरूर इन्वेस्टिगेशन तुरंत स्टार्ट होना चाहिए करके.
When we arrived here in Sector 63 Noida at the corporate address of the company that is given on its website, we only found a tin shed over here and no sign of the company. Even the contact numbers that are given on its website are unreachable.
10 other labs that conducted the Kumbh tests are also under the scanner. Officials at most of these labs refused to comment on the issue. An official at one of these labs off camera claimed that they were yet to receive a formal notice from the government. But how were these fake tests conducted? Uttarakhand police sources have told NDTV that one way was to note mobile number of those entering the state during the Kumbh with a genuine negative RT-PCR report, and then generate a fake negative rapid antigen test report using the same mobile number.
प्रारंभिक जो वहाँ देहरादून से भी जो है जो इंक्वायरी किया गया है, उसमें भी कुछ अनियमितताएं पुष्ट हुआ था कि एक ही लैब के माध्यम से लगभग इतना 1 लाख के आसपास जो टेस्ट करना, जो डेटा एंट्री वाला जो विषय भी है वो तो राजस्थान से किया हुआ जो है प्रतीत हो रहा था. इस प्रकार का जो है विभिन्न मुद्दों थे, तो उसमें ये इतना कन्विंसिंग था कि ये जो है जरूर इरेगुलरिटी हुआ है.
The controversy over fake tests has led to a war of words within the ruling BJP.
ये लापरवाही नहीं है, ये अपराध है, और सरकार ने उस पर SIT बिठाने का निर्णय लिया है.
वो मामला पुराना है. मैं मार्च में आया हूं, लेकिन उस पर तो पहले ही हम जांच बिठा चुके हैं.
The Uttarakhand High Court, while putting a stay on the arrests in the case till the next hearing on the 25th of June, has urged the labs to be present during the next hearing. Meanwhile, the scam has not just cost the exchequer public money, but by all accounts worsened the COVID situation during the peak second wave across the country. With Akshay Dongre in Delhi, Bureau Report, NDTV.
Moving on now, as job losses mount, there are tales of despair from across the country. The second wave has left families distraught, jobs being impacted for over a year, families now forced to cut down even the cost of food.
अभी घर गृहस्थी चलाना बहुत मुश्किल हो रहा है.
घर में राशन नहीं है, घर में तेल नहीं रहता है, घर में कुछ नहीं रहता, तो बहुत दिक्कतें होती हैं। किससे कहें किसे नहीं कहें, ऐसी वाली बात होती है।
49-year-old Devendra Pardeshi in Mumbai lost his job as a sales marketing worker in a flooring showroom during last year's lockdown and has been struggling to find another job since.
तो हम लोग को 20,000 रुपये देते थे, लेकिन अभी जस्ट लॉकडाउन हुआ है तब से उन्होंने अप्रैल मई जून का हमें तीन महीने का उन्होंने मुझे 5-5 हज़ार रुपये सैलरी दिया। फिर उसके बाद जून में उनको खुद को कोरोना हो गया और उनके घर में उनके फादर को भी कोरोना हो गया, तो फादर एक्सपायर हो गए। तो सर ने मना कर दिया कि बोले मैं अब नहीं कर सकता हूँ, तुम अपना नज़दीकी कहीं जॉब ढूंढ लो। और मैं पिछले 1-1.5 साल से हर जगह पे जॉब के लिए अप्लाई किया, लेकिन कहीं से भी रिस्पांस नहीं आ रहा है।
आपने कितने जॉब के लिए अप्लाई किया होगा?
मैंने कम से कम 5 से 6 जॉब के लिए अप्लाई किया हूँ। मतलब एज ए कस्टमर रिलेशन एग्जीक्यूटिव जॉब मैं कर सकता हूँ और मैंने वो भी काम किया हूँ। तो कस्टमर रिलेशन एग्जीक्यूटिव या एडमिन का काम, ये सब मुझे अच्छा तरीके से आता है, क्योंकि मैंने सैमसंग में भी काम कर चुका हूँ, फिलिप्स में भी काम कर चुका हूँ और टाटा स्काई में भी काम कर चुका हूँ।
बीच में कोई काम कुछ करने
मैं एक्चुअली कैमरामैन का भी काम किया हूँ। पहले मैं सीरियल वगैरह करता था काफ़ी, तो अभी मैंने 2-4 कैमरामैन से भी बात किया था, तो मुझे एक मराठी सीरियल का काम मिला था 15 दिन का। तो वो भी पेमेंट ऐसा है कि काम करो, उसके 45 डेज़ के बाद पेमेंट मिलता है। तो वो भी उनने 2,000 दिए, कभी 4,000 दिए, ऐसा करते करते मेरे को उन्होंने 9,000 मेरा बना था 15 दिन का, तो 9,000 मेरे को उन्होंने ऐसे 3,000 कभी 2,000 कभी, ऐसा करते करते 4 महीने से वही दे रहे। तो जैसे जैसे हम लोग वही गाड़ी चला रहे बस।
The first wave in the national lockdown last year saw many lose their jobs. The private think tank CMIE, which regularly publishes job loss data, estimated that in the month of April 2020 alone, over 11 crore jobs were lost. However, what this doesn't reflect is that how, because of a faltering economy and a muted job market during the pandemic, many of those who lost their jobs last year continue to be unemployed even now, over a year later, and even in India's commercial capital, Mumbai. In fact, as per an ongoing study at the Azim Premji University, of those who lost their jobs in India in April 2020, 27% were unemployed in April 2021 too, a year later. The Pardeshi family are now surviving on loans, the wife's meager wages from an NGO she works part-time at, and the benevolence of their elder daughter, who works with a private finance company. They say they eat sub-quality rice and grains they buy from the government ration shops now, but they've saved some good rice from their well-off days for guests and special occasions. The biggest casualty has been plans for their children. Their second daughter wanted to pursue a degree in interior designing.
मेरी बड़ी बेटी सेकंड नंबर की बेटी है, ऋषिता नाम है उसका, तो वो इंटीरियर डिज़ाइनिंग का कोर्स करना चाहती है, लेकिन इंटीरियर डिज़ाइनिंग के लिए मैंने पूछा तो 1.5 लाख रुपया उसके लिए फ़ीस है। तो 1.5 लाख रुपया मेरे पास तो है नहीं, तो मैंने बोला बच्चे अभी ऐसा कर और 1-8 साल पढ़ ले, फिर देखते हैं क्या है।
The Pardeshis are just some of India's burgeoning neo-middle class who aspired for better lives with a better disposable income. But with job losses and economic despair, there's little hope in sight for now. Unemployment rate in Maharashtra rose from 3.5% in March this year to 5.7% in May. This is better than the peak of 20.9% in April last year during the national lockdown.
देखिए ऐसा है कि 1.5 साल से पूरी इकोनॉमी ठप है। ये हमारा जो कैपिटल है शहर, इसमें सर्विस सेक्टर में काम करने वाले बड़े पैमाने पे लोग हैं, अनऑर्गेनाइज सेक्टर में काम करने वाले लोग हैं। तो लॉकडाउन की वजह से बड़े पैमाने में लोगों के रोज़गार गए हैं, ये सच्चाई है। अब सरकार ने जितना सरकार संभव था कि मुफ्त में राशन देने की योजना हमने लाई, फिर केंद्र ने भी उसका ऐलान कर दिया, लेकिन राज्य सरकार की भी एक मर्यादा है। लॉकडाउन के कारण जो हमारा टैक्स कलेक्शन था, रेवेन्यू, वो इतना कम हो गया, जो सैलरी देनी है या पेंशन देना है लोगों को, उसमें कोई कटौती नहीं की गई।
The minister tells us that they will soon be launching a scheme to encourage job creation, where employers can create 25% more jobs for on-job training, and the government will contribute 50% of the salary up to rupees 5,000 for these new jobs.
हमने एक नई स्कीम बनाई है जिसको हमने ऑन जॉब ट्रेनिंग की स्कीम बनाई, जो आने वाले अगस्त महीने में हम लॉन्च करेंगे, ताकि जो एम्प्लॉयर है, हमने ऐसी स्कीम बनाई है कि आपके पास अगर 100 परमानेंट जॉब है तो 25 आप नए लोगों को ऑन जॉब ट्रेनिंग पे रखें। 50% सैलरी, अगर 10,000 आप तनख्वाह देते हैं तो 5,000 प्रति माह सरकार उसमें तनख्वाह कंट्रीब्यूट करेगी।
But August is still over a month away and many are on the brink. In Ambujwadi, a slum, we meet Mohammad Jamil Akhtar Sheikh, who used to work at a garment manufacturing unit in Borivali as a tailor until last year.
28,000 पगार था मेरा उस टाइम।
अच्छा।
तो मैं कर रहा था।
हाँ।
लेकिन पिछले साल से जो बंद हुआ कंपनी अभी तक बंद है।
अच्छा, तो उसके बाद कोई दूसरा नौकरी कुछ?
उसके बाद कुछ करने के लायक ही नहीं, हम क्या कर सकते हैं? हमारे को जो काम आता है वही करेंगे ना।
हाँ।
तो टेलर का काम वैसे भी कहीं नहीं चालू है।
हाँ।
हमें तो टेलर का ही काम आता है। पिछले साल भी बंद था, ये साल भी बंद है।
पिछले साल और अभी के लॉकडाउन के बीच में कुछ काम मिला था आपको? बीच में जब खुल गया था?
नहीं, काम नहीं मिला मुझे।
हाँ। आपने इस बीच में दूसरे जॉब की कोशिश की?
दूसरा काम में मतलब हम लोग क्या ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा टेलर का कटिंग कर सकते हैं। हाँ। या मशीन का काम कर सकते हैं, तो मशीन का भी काम बंद है। हाँ। मैं मशीन का काम के लिए गया था कई जगह पे। हाँ। कि कम से कम कारीगरी कर लूँ, लेकिन वो भी नहीं मिला। नहीं मिला।
कितने जगह ट्राई किया होगा? कितने जगह?
कई जगह पे, करीब 5-6 जगह पे तो परसों जाके आया मैं।
सिर्फ एक दिन में?
हाँ, फ्राइडे को मैं गया था। हाँ। करीब 5-6 जगह पे, सांता क्रूज और बांद्रा मिला करके 5-6 जगह पे गया था। क्योंकि इधर लोकल में नहीं गया तो 5-6 जगह पे गया था मैं।
अच्छा, तो वो 5-6 जगह एक दिन में गए थे, उसमें भी कुछ ही नहीं, कुछ
काम नहीं मिला मुझे।
कहीं काम नहीं मिला?
सबके पास काम ही नहीं है।
अच्छा।
The Jamil family now depends on their 11th grader son to make ends meet, who does construction work when he doesn't have classes, earning rupees 200 to 300 a day. Or their daughter, who works with an NGO to earn about rupees 2,000 every 2 months. The impact visible. In their rundown kitchen, their meal for the day. Some burnt rice, few rotis, some dal. With no regular source of income anymore, Jamil has taken loans from local loan sharks at exorbitant interest rates to feed his family.
आप कह रहे थे कि आपकी जॉब छूटने के बाद आपने कुछ कर्जा भी लिया था। हाँ। ये किस लिए लिया था और कितना लिया था?
ये कर्जा हमने करीब 1.5-2 लाख रुपया लिया था। हाँ। जो कि बढ़ के अभी जो 3 लाख से ऊपर जा रहा है। अभी भर नहीं पा रहा हूँ क्योंकि काम नहीं था, तो हम सोचा कि चलो काम चालू होगा तो कर्जा हम फिरा देंगे। और कर्जा जो है अन्ना लोगों से लिया हुआ है। हाँ। जो मतलब 15% कम से कम उनका रहता है महीने वाला सिस्टम। हाँ। महीने का 15%, साल का नहीं है, महीने का 15% का उनका इंटरेस्ट आता है। हाँ। अभी क्या मालूम उनका कितना होगा। हाँ। हम लोगों ने 2020 का लॉकडाउन के बाद सोचा था कि अभी खुल जाएगा। हाँ। तो काम करेंगे तो फिर जाएगा कर्जा। हाँ। क्योंकि हम लोग का जरा सैलरी ठीक ठाक रहता है। हाँ। तो फिर जाएगा। फिर ये बार हो गया। हाँ। अभी इसके बाद फिर नौकरी मिलेगा कि नहीं मिलेगा, वो ज़्यादा परेशान कर रहा है इंसान।
अच्छा।
ये बार, पिछले बार तो उम्मीद थी कि नौकरी मिल जाएगी। हाँ। लेकिन ये बार मिलने वाला है कि नहीं, वो कंपनी दोबारा चालू होगी कि नहीं, और कहीं मिलेगा कि नहीं, ये भरोसा नहीं।
With camera person Sanjay Mandal, this is Mariam Alavi for NDTV.
And tales of despair continue, not just for these people, but even for the artisan and the craftsmen who depended on Delhi Haat in the national capital for a long, long time for their survival.
Delhi's most popular handicrafts destination, the Delhi Haat, empty in the pandemic. Despite easing of restrictions in the last few days, Ijaz Hussain and Meera, who own and run stalls at the otherwise popular place, say moving work online hasn't really helped.
जिस बंदे का 10,000 रुपये देना है तो उसको 500 ही दे के अपना जो भी है काम चला रहा हूँ। हमें गवर्नमेंट तो कोई मतलब कहीं से कहीं तक कोई मतलब हेल्प नहीं करती। हम लोग खुद अपना काम करते, खुद अपना बनाते हैं।
कोविड से एक दिन पहले ही है ना, मेरा हस्बैंड ख़त्म हो गए, उनकी डेथ हो गई। फिर उसके बाद में बच्चे हैं, 2 लड़की है, 1 लड़का है, वो पढ़ते हैं बच्चे, काम मैं ही करती हूँ। अब ऑनलाइन करना तो चाहते हैं मगर पता नहीं है ना, हमें उसका जरिया नहीं पता।
In normal times, Delhi Haat witnessed a footfall of around 10,000 people a day. This number went up to 20,000 people a day during cultural festivals. In the last week, barely 500 entry tickets per day have been sold. This is bad news not only for stall owners, but others like 73-year-old Ram, a migrant from East UP's Jaunpur, who has sold tea for decades outside the market.
कितने में चाय बेच रहे हो?
5 रुपए की दे रहे हैं।
जो 10 रुपए का हुआ करता था 5 रुपए में बेच रहे हो, ऐसा कैसे, क्यों?
नहीं कहा, काम तो है नहीं जी, तो मजबूरी में कर रहा हूँ।
Santosh, who has been sweeping floors at Delhi Haat for the last 24 years, is hopeful things will get better.
कभी दिल्ली हाट में ऐसा नहीं देखा है, जैसे लॉकडाउन में काम देखा है, सारे चाहे दुकान होटल सब बंद हैं, लोग परेशान होते हैं, काम चल नहीं रहा उनका, इसलिए थोड़ा काम चलेगा, अच्छा रहेगा, सबकी रोजी रोटी चलेगी।
Delhi Haat, a popular shopping destination which saw a footfall of up to 10,000 people at one time, is now wearing a deserted look, with only about 200 to 300 barely coming in every day. The ongoing pandemic has resulted in huge job losses and business losses. While some craftsmen have packed up and gone back to their hometowns, some have returned from their villages back into Delhi, hoping that they would make some money. With camera person Rakesh Singh in Delhi, Shunakshi Chakravarti for NDTV.
So the Prime Minister met yesterday the political leaders from Jammu and Kashmir for over 3 hours at his residence. And he said that this was an endeavour to remove Dilli ki duri and also Dil ki duri. They discussed various issues from the delimitation process to restoring statehood back. The Prime Minister saying it will be done, but at an appropriate time. So what exactly are we to make out of all these discussions? What is going to be the likely outcome? How soon will elections happen, if at all? Will delimitation take place first and then statehood to be restored? All of that is up for discussion. But before that, let's quickly bring to you some of the reactions that came in from the Prime Minister and the Home Minister. They both tweeted about the meeting yesterday. Prime Minister saying that our priority is to strengthen the grassroots level democracy in Jammu and Kashmir, and delimitation has to happen so that polls can happen in J&K. Then also reaction from the Home Minister saying on similar lines about being committed to ensure an all-round development of the state. In fact, NDTV also spoke.
प्रधानमंत्री जी ने कहा कि जम्मू कश्मीर में लोकतांत्रिक प्रक्रिया से जुड़े अगले महत्वपूर्ण कदम यानी विधानसभा चुनाव की तरफ हमें मिलकर जाना है। इसके लिए डीलिमिटेशन की प्रक्रिया को तेजी से पूरा करना होगा ताकि हर क्षेत्र, हर वर्ग को पर्याप्त राजनीतिक प्रतिनिधित्व विधानसभा में प्राप्त हो सके।
Meanwhile, the National Conference leader Omar Abdullah asked why is Jammu and Kashmir being singled out for delimitation. He also said that the Kashmiri leaders want full statehood restored. In fact, the PDP leader Mehbooba Mufti also said that they would struggle peacefully and will continue to do so for restoring Article 370.
One of the significant sort of announcements appears to have been this commitment to restoring statehood. Tell us a little bit about that. What exactly was said, and do you see that as an important first step?
Well, the Home Minister reiterated, as he said, his commitment that was made to Parliament and subsequently as well, and that was again reinforced by the Prime Minister, that Jammu and Kashmir has to be given statehood. The point that some of the people who spoke made was that it has to be complete statehood. It can't be a truncated state.
Right.
It cannot be a state which is further stripped of powers. Jammu and Kashmir will have to be a state like West Bengal is, or like Maharashtra is, or Madhya Pradesh is.
Right.
And one of the points that was made, and made quite forcefully, is that Jammu and Kashmir must have its cadre restored to it. If
Right.
Jammu and Kashmir is a state, then why should its officers come from the UT cadre or any of those other sort of setups? J&K traditionally had a J&K cadre in the IAS and IAPS and elsewhere, and that cadre should be restored.
Constitutionally, democratically, peacefully struggle करेंगे, चाहे महीने लग जाए या साल लग जाए, हम जम्मू कश्मीर में 370 बहाल करेंगे, क्योंकि ये हमारे आइडेंटिटी की बात है, ये हमें पाकिस्तान से नहीं मिला था, ये हमारे मुल्क हिंदुस्तान ने, जवाहरलाल नेहरू ने, इसमें कोई कॉम्प्रोमाइज नहीं होगा। इसके अलावा हमने कहा कि आप चाइना के साथ बात कर रहे हैं, मैंने उनको कॉम्प्लीमेंट किया, आपने पाकिस्तान से बात की, इन्फिल्ट्रेशन कम हुई, बहुत अच्छी बात है। और जम्मू कश्मीर में जो सख्ती है, जो पकड़ दकड़ है, जो मारपीट का माहौल है, जिस तरह से अभी बात की नहीं होती है तो उसको UAPA लगाया जाता है।
In fact, in reactions coming in from the Congress party as well this morning, where former Finance Minister P. Chidambaram has talked about how Congress and other J&K parties and leaders want statehood first and elections afterwards. Government response is election first and statehood later. Now, so that seems to be an area which will have to be worked upon. Let's try and get an update from Nazir on the very latest on this one. Nazir, one can only imagine what could have happened in that meeting when the Prime Minister sat together with leaders who had been prisoners, who had been sent in detention for months at ends, who did not have contact with family, internet connection was cut off as well, but to finally come down on the talking table and have terms laid out. But are you also getting an indication that perhaps the talks are moving in that direction, as people and political parties in J&K want the promise of statehood to be fulfilled first and then delimitation to follow?
Well, Sonal, parties here see it as a huge beginning, opening of a window, and because the contact between Srinagar and Delhi has completely broken. Now, yesterday, Prime Minister with that group photo with the senior leaders, same leaders they would call as Gupkar gang till yesterday, accepting them as their representatives and leaders of Jammu and Kashmir, the future of J&K can be discussed. So they see it as a beginning of a process, not an event. That's why they say further discussions will take place, and there is a one point whether there should be restoration of state first or there should be election first. The political parties here, all the political parties, Congress, National Conference, PDP, everybody is saying state should be restored first and then there should be elections. But the BJP and the government has been saying let there be the elections first following delimitation and then the state can be restored later. And then as far as the special status is concerned, almost without saying so, everybody has agreed, let's leave it to the Supreme Court. And the government has also said in that meeting that since the issue is sub judice, all the parties have actually challenged the centre's decision on August 5, 2019 before the Supreme Court. Only thing Supreme Court has done so far is they have constituted a larger bench, 5-judge bench, but they have not heard the case so far because of the COVID, because of the virtual, now the court is working in virtual mode. If the proceedings will start, people would know which way the case is going, but there was almost everybody was thinking we will fight it in court, be it Mahbooba Mufti or Omar Abdullah. Well, they say August 5 decision is not acceptable to them, but they are going to fight it in the court. Perhaps there was no enough clear answer from the central government except saying this is sub judice. But as far as the restoration of state is concerned, they are saying it should happen first, then rest of the things can follow. That remains the point. But the good thing is they are saying a beginning has been made by the Prime Minister. A dialogue process has been started. It has a journey from detentions to dialogue, a journey from mistrust and bitterness to that optics of that big picture with the Prime Minister and so-called Gupkar gang, 3 leaders sitting in the front row, and those who were not part of gang were put in the second row. So that was a huge symbolism, political symbolism. True. Before that all-party meeting started, and they're saying it is a beginning. Not happy, but certainly not disappointed either. Sonal.
All right, nicely said, Nazir, over there. The journey from detention to dialogue. Finally, the first step has been taken. Let's see where it goes from here on. Thanks so much for joining us with the very latest. Moving on now, at least 7 confirmed cases of the new Delta Plus variant of coronavirus have been confirmed in Madhya Pradesh, out of which 3 patients who had either got a single dose or double doses of the COVID vaccination have been cured under home isolation. So no complications with them. But out of the 4 remaining, all of who did not receive even a single jab of the vaccines and were detected of the Delta Plus variant, 2 of them have died after hospitalization. Anurag Dwari joins us for the very latest. Anurag, this case tells us how important vaccination is, and what it also tells us is that now we've started to identify the Delta Plus even in Madhya Pradesh. Or the concern at this point is how are the authorities going to ensure it further does not spread?
Yes, Kunal, 7 cases of Delta Plus variant so far reported in Madhya Pradesh, and as you have pointed out, 2 others, including a 22-year-old woman and a 2.5-year-old girl, have managed to defeat the infection. Out of the 7 cases which were confirmed as patients of the new variant, 3 are from Bhopal, 2 from Ujjain, and 1 each from Raisen and Ashoknagar districts. All the 7 patients were tested COVID positive last month, but the genome sequencing of their samples at the National Centre for Disease Control established them as confirmed Delta Plus variant cases this month only. This was also confirmed by the Cabinet Minister, Medical Education, Vishwas Sarang, and they have said that, what could emerge as a silver lining in the dark cloud is the fact that 3 of these 7 cases were either fully vaccinated or partially vaccinated. So, a 60-plus woman who had already been administered double jabs of the vaccine won the battle against the infection under home isolation only. And 2 other female patients, including a 60-plus woman and a 50-plus woman in Bhopal, both vaccinated partially, also turned negative for the viral infection, and which raises, as you have also pointed out, about the strong possibility of the vaccination even working against the newest variant of the coronavirus.
All right, Anurag, thanks so much for bringing us the latest on that. The Delta Plus variant now making its inroads in Madhya Pradesh as well. But clearly the takeaway from that is that vaccines do work, and that should be our priority at this point. And talking about variants, why is it that Maharashtra placed with the higher chances of mutations of COVID virus? While the Delta version was found in Maharashtra first, which eventually brought about a second wave in the country, now the biggest number of Delta Plus cases also emerging out of Maharashtra. Why is that happening? Well, we tried to understand this with experts.
The first case of Delta variant B16172 was reported in Maharashtra in October last year. This variant is considered responsible for the second wave. 733 samples were collected between November 2020 and March 31, 2021 to study mutation, followed by genome sequencing found that the virus had mutated 47 times. After May 15th, Maharashtra sent a total of 7,500 samples for genome sequencing, and 21 Delta Plus variant cases have been identified from the same samples. Delta Plus has now become the variant of concern, and it is believed to have further mutated and formed 2 variants named AY1 and AY2. The state government's COVID task force is trying to understand the reasons for this. According to the task force, Maharashtra is the only state sending about 100 samples from each of its 36 districts for genome sequencing. Therefore, mutation identification is easy. Maharashtra, currently with over 121,000 active cases, has had a higher number of patients since its inception, and the presence of viruses in patients for a long time also helps in mutation. Different factors such as continuing maritime trade, population density and weather could be among the long list of causes as it results in a large floating population.
महाराष्ट्र जो है ये एक इंडस्ट्रियलाइज्ड और प्रगतिशील स्टेट है। मुंबई और आसपास का इलाका जो है इसका फाइनेंशियल कैपिटल है हमारे देश का, तो स्वाभाविक है कि लोग जो है मुंबई में आना जाना इनका बहुत ज़्यादा लगा रहता है दूसरे स्टेट से भी, और इस वजह से जो है कि पेशेंट्स भी आ सकते हैं और स्ट्रेन में जो है म्यूटेशंस हो सकती है। और दूसरी बात, सबसे महत्वपूर्ण बात यह है कि महाराष्ट्र एकमेव अभी राज्य है जो कि हर महीने 100 सैंपल्स हर डिस्ट्रिक्ट से जीनोम सीक्वेंसिंग के लिए ले रहे हैं, और इस वजह से है हम लोग जो है वो एक्चुअली ये जो डेल्टा प्लस वेरिएंट है उसको पकड़ पाए।
Dr. Suresh Chandra Singh, a scientist associated with major health projects of the government, and Dr. Gautam Bhansali, a member of the BMC COVID task force, have attributed the reasons for mutation to several factors such as maritime trade and even the humid weather.
केसेस भी सबसे ज़्यादा हमेशा सबसे पहले महाराष्ट्र में आता है, केरला में आता है, फिर गुजरात और फिर रेस्ट ऑफ द कंट्री में जाता है। बाकी जो मौसम का इफेक्ट है, डेफिनेटली मौसम जैसे पहले हमारे यहाँ पे रहता है, उसके बाद में जैसे बारिश पहले यहाँ आ रही है उसके बाद बाकी कंट्री में आती है, या पहले जैसे गर्मी वगैरह है यहाँ होती है बाकी सब जगह होती है। ये बेसिकली थोड़ा सा मुझे पोर्ट वगैरह का रीजन लगता है, प्लस यहाँ एंट्री जो होती है सबसे ज़्यादा एंट्री पॉइंट केरला और महाराष्ट्र में है, तो इसकी यही मुझे सबसे बड़ी मुख्य वजह लगती है कि यहाँ पहले आता है और बाकी रेस्ट ऑफ द कंट्री में जाता है।
द एयर रूट, जो एयर रूट मुंबई महाराष्ट्र का है, प्लस पॉपुलेटेड कंडीशन ऑफ दिस सिटी का। सेकंड, जो सी रूट अगर हम बात करें तो बहुत सारे फॉरेन्स या फॉरेन से गुड्स और सप्लाई सी रूट से आते हैं, और अगर हम मिडिल ईस्ट को जोड़ते हैं कि मिडिल ईस्ट से कोई भी कनेक्शन मुंबई के थ्रू आती है। लास्ट ईयर की बात करें तो फर्स्ट केस हमको महाराष्ट्र मुंबई में मिला था, क्योंकि वो भी केस दुबई के थ्रू आया था। तो दीज आर द 3-4 फैक्टर्स जो इफेक्ट कर रहे हैं कि महाराष्ट्र मुंबई से स्टार्ट हो रहा है, महाराष्ट्र के थ्रू हो रहा है।
The reasons for the mutation are under investigation, but experts say a faster pace of vaccination with less time in between doses could help in preventing mutations. With Pooja Bharadwaj in Mumbai, Gauri Datta Gupta, NDTV.
Well, 2,000 people have fallen victim of fake vaccination camps in Mumbai. Worrying story coming in from Maharashtra one more time, where there are 4 FIRs now and 6 people arrested, including a lady who shared the username password of the CoWIN app to generate vaccination certificates. What exactly is the story all about? Where did they get these vials from? What exactly was happening? Let's get a word from Saurabh Gupta joining us now. Saurabh, take us through the full background on this story. How exactly did this happen? 2,000 people fell victim to a fake vaccination camp.
Absolutely, and that's something that the Bombay High Court has been told while, hearing a petition. In fact, the BMC informed the Bombay High Court that, look, about 2,000 people could have been victims of these fake vaccination camps. Now, it seems to be the same set of people who've been conducting these camps. They've conducted about 9 camps according to the police investigation so far. There are 4 FIRs in the case already. Police investigations are on. But one key question is, while the police have located some vials, they need to know where were these vials sent to and what was in those vials that was eventually, injected into the people who believed that they were receiving the vaccine, the COVID vaccine. Now, a similar racket has been going on in KOLKATA as well, and there, of course, the police seem to have figured out what exactly was injected. But here in Mumbai, that bit of the investigation is taking some time, simply because, the BMC has written to the Serum Institute of India, with the batch number, saying where were these vials sent to. They believe at this point that it could have come in from Gujarat. But again, were these filled with actual Covishield vaccine, or was it filled with something else that was eventually administered to people who were believing they were getting the vaccine? That's something that's still a matter of investigation. And of course, it's a very, very worrying scenario that people, even in the middle of a pandemic, are scamming those who simply want to get a jab. And essentially, this all boils down to one thing. There is shortage. And that's something that, that's something that perhaps also is contributing to that. Now, of course, vaccine supplies are improving, and there are more vaccinations taking place. The BMC has the capacity to do a lot more, but they say that they can do a lot more if they have more supplies. But in all of this, unfortunate that at least 2,000 people have been administered, whatever it is at this point, unclear. But they were believing that they were getting the vaccine, and the Bombay High Court has taken a very serious note of that.
Right. So after Kolkata, in Maharashtra and Mumbai as well, we don't know how many other places this could have been. And who are these 2,000 people? They need to be taken in for urgent medical care as well. We hope the government really gets down to the basis and of where exactly this racket is unfolding and how this continues to happen. Thanks, Saurabh. We'll leave it there for the moment, but come back to you as that's more emerges out of that story. We're going to slip into a break. News and updates continue on the other side. Welcome back. It's time for a special campaign, Vaccinate India, in partnership with Google, where we are discussing some of the questions that you often ask and often turn to Google also for. We've got experts for you who will take all your questions. Joining us today is Dr. Tiku. He's the Director for Internal Medicine at Max Healthcare. Thanks so much for your time. Welcome back to NDTV. We talk, Doc, at a time when we are getting to get a little worried about the Delta Plus variant. And unlock is happening all over. People are returning back to offices, some to malls and markets as well. So that's the question I want to first raise with you, which often viewers also Google, is how does one prevent themselves from COVID? At a time when people might be vaccinated with one dose or not, and people are forced to now go out for work or otherwise, like I said, with a new variant already out there, what are some of the preventive measures that should be followed?
Well, the preventive measures are the same. You have to follow a COVID-appropriate behavior. The moment you step out of the house, just wear a mask, avoid crowds, avoid poorly ventilated spaces. Even inside the house, you have to be careful because you might have vulnerable patients at home. They might catch it and they might be in trouble. But coming to the variant bit, we don't have too many patients right now. We have 40-odd patients in India, but we have to be vigilant. We've seen what this virus can do, especially the variants. So there's a lot of study being done. We don't know how transmissible it is, but it's similar to the Delta variant, so it must be more infectious, definitely. We don't know whether it causes severe disease mortality, but we'll know more about it. But the bottom line is we have to be extremely vigilant and we have to follow a COVID-appropriate behavior if we want to get rid of this virus. Apart from the fact that we have to aggressively vaccinate and there should be no vaccine hesitancy at all, because vaccination is the key. And to get rid of this virus and to prevent ourselves from getting infected or to prevent a potential third wave, the only thing we have to do is to follow the norms, wear a mask, do whatever the government asks you to do, and vaccination is the key. Everyone should get vaccinated. There should be no hesitancy at all, because we've seen even with the variants, even with the Delta positive variants in Madhya Pradesh, 2 of them, as you recently said, that they died because they were not vaccinated. And even 30 crore people in India are already vaccinated. What more proof do you need about the safety? There have been no major issues. So aggressively get vaccinated, wear a mask, wear a double mask, especially when you're in crowded gatherings, and anyway avoid it and work from home as much as possible. These are the only 2 things that we need to do, whichever variant it is. If you wear a mask, you'll not get infected. That's the bottom line, I would say.
Right. No, lots of good points from what you've said actually, Doc, because even in Madhya Pradesh, we saw that out of those 7 people who got the Delta Plus virus, those who were vaccinated actually just got better in self-isolation at home. And those 2 lives which were lost were the people who did not get vaccinated and the others who landed up in the hospital. So there is very clear, evidence over there that vaccines do work, and that's the message we really need to put out to our viewers as well. That's what Google is helping us do also in this campaign. But having talked about that, let me bring in the second question about, which is also often Googled, about self-care during COVID. These are troubling times, Doctor. There are, just when we thought that the second wave is behind us, we can return to some sense of normalcy now. There again is this fear of the Delta Plus looming on us. We are just trying, there's a big, divide into should I go out, should I not go out? There's mental impact as well. What is your advice to people who are still quite worried? What is the best way to take care of yourself during these times?
Well, I would say don't step out, work from home as much as possible. If you do, wear a mask. And for everyone else, it's very important to understand what this virus can do. So see, non-essential travel is something which you can avoid. And if you can work from home, nothing like it. Because we've seen in the second wave, there's been a lot of devastation. So many people have died. The virus has affected younger people, and with these variants affecting younger people more and causing early lung involvement, there can be a lot of damage. And especially with the potential third wave looming with these Delta positive variants around. But what we need to do is to stay at home, work from home as much as possible. The moment you step out, you wear a mask and make sure that people at home who are vulnerable are taken care of. You take care of your health, eat well, sleep well, do yoga, do meditation, have a balanced diet. This is what you avoid stress, avoid alcohol, avoid smoking, keep yourself healthy, and make sure that you follow all the norms. That's the only way you can prevent yourself from getting infected. And again, I would put some stress on vaccination. If you've not been vaccinated, please go ahead, get vaccinated. It doesn't matter which vaccine. Covishield, Covaxin, Sputnik, whichever it is, they're all good. Anything above 50% efficacy is very good. So go for it. Go for it. Don't wait for Pfizer. Don't wait for any other vaccine. Vaccination is the key. Follow the norms, wear a mask, make sure everyone around you is healthy, because it's not only about you. It's about your family, it's about your friends, it's about your colleagues. You might get a mild disease, but you might give it to somebody who's vulnerable and he might be in trouble. So that's what
all
we need
right
to do.
there. So really going back to the basics over here, you just follow that and keep yourself at bay and out of the risk of these new variants as well. Thank you so much, Doc, for sparing your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, the mystery over the fake COVID test during Kumbh in Haridwar continues with police conducting probe into the alleged scam of over 1 lakh fake tests to meet the target of 50,000 tests every day set up by the Uttarakhand High Court during the holy month in April. Akshay Dongre explores.
The extent of fake COVID tests at Haridwar Kumbh Mela is unraveling. This tin shed is the corporate address of the lab Max Corporate Services that had the highest number of test reports, 1.18 lakh. Clearly, no kind of background checks appear to have been conducted.
इस प्रकार का जो है कमियां थी उस पे जो है उनका एड्रेस को लेकर के मतलब विरोधाभासा स्थिति निकल रही थी और ICMR एक्रेडिटेशन एम्पैनलमेंट का प्रोसेस इस प्रकार का कई मुद्दे हैं तो ये सभी मुद्दों को देखने के बाद जब कन्विंसिंग लग रहा था कि इसमें जरूर इन्वेस्टिगेशन तुरंत स्टार्ट होना चाहिए करके
When we arrived here in Sector 63 Noida at the corporate address of the company that is given on its website, we only found a tin shed over here and no sign of the company. Even the contact numbers that are given on its website are unreachable.
10 other labs that conducted the Kumbh tests are also under the scanner.
Officials at most of these labs refused to comment on the issue. An official at one of these labs off camera claimed that they were yet to receive a formal notice from the government.
But how were these fake tests conducted? Uttarakhand police sources have told NDTV that one way was to note mobile number of those entering the state during the Kumbh with a genuine negative RT-PCR report and then generate a fake negative rapid antigen test report using the same mobile number.
प्रारंभिक जो वहाँ देहरादून से भी जो है जो इंक्वायरी किया गया है उसमें भी कुछ अनियमितताएं पुष्ट हुआ था कि एक ही लैब के माध्यम से लगभग इतना 1 लाख के आसपास जो टेस्ट करना जो डेटा एंट्री वाला जो विषय भी है वो तो राजस्थान से किया हुआ जो है प्रतीत हो रहा था इस प्रकार का जो है विभिन्न मुद्दों थे तो उसमें ये इतना कन्विंसिंग था कि ये जो है जरूर इरेगुलरिटी हुआ है.
The controversy over fake tests has led to a war of words within the ruling BJP.
ये लापरवाही नहीं है, ये अपराध है और सरकार ने उस पर SIT बिठाने का निर्णय लिया है.
वो मामला पुराना है, मैं मार्च में आया हूं, लेकिन उस पर तो पहले ही हम जांच बिठा चुके हैं.
The Uttarakhand High Court, while putting a stay on the arrests in the case till the next hearing on the 25th of June, has urged the labs to be present during the next hearing. Meanwhile, the scam has not just cost the exchequer public money, but by all accounts worsened the COVID situation during the peak second wave across the country. With Akshay Dongre in Delhi, Bureau Report, NDTV.
So the latest COVID figures of the past 24 hours have now been released. Let's take you through that. India has reported 51,667 cases in the past 24 hours and the number of those who have died continues to be high. It continues to be 1,329 at this point. Now the active caseload has declined. It's declined to about 6,12,868 and the recoveries continue to be impressive. But at this point, the concern remains to be the number of cases and the number of deaths as well at this point. Now, the positivity rate remains to be below 5%, currently at 3%. But remember, this is relatively higher from what we had seen a little days ago. And the testing capacity is substantially ramped up with about 39.95 crore tests being conducted. All right, so those are the latest figures, but also news coming in from the Supreme Court now, where a panel there has said that the Delhi government exaggerated its oxygen requirement by at least 4 times. The Supreme Court panel saying the Delhi government claim of 1,140 metric tons of oxygen was 4 times than the calculated consumption as per the bed formula, were just about 289 metric tons. So saying they escalated their demand 4 times. Let me see if I have Vedyanathan on the phone line with us. But while we wait for that, let me just give you a few more details on that story. The panel also saying that the average consumption of oxygen in Delhi is between 284 to 392. So why exactly did they sort of push up their demand and created this fake shortage, if one can call it that at this point? The panel also saying that excess supply of oxygen affected other states in need of oxygen, as that had to be diverted over here. The panel also saying that 4 Delhi hospitals claimed high consumption on oxygen with fewer beds with them. All right, that's a story we continue to track here, right here on NDTV. We'll bring you reactions through the day as well. But for the moment, let's shift our focus to some political news coming in, this time from Bihar, in what is being perceived as an olive branch. The RJD leader, Tejasvi Yadav, has said the LJP leader, Chirag Paswan, must decide which side he wants to align with. The comment comes as Chirag Paswan faces dissidents in his party, with his uncle staging a coup against him. And Tejasvi said similar splits were engineered by the JDU in the LJP, while his father, the RJD chief, and it was Lalu Prasad Yadav who helped Ramvilas Paswan get a Rajya Sabha seat after he lost his own Lok Sabha seat back in the day. So what exactly is brewing? Take a look.
आप सब लोगों को पता है 2010 में जब एक एमएलए एक एमपी नहीं था लोजपा से, तो आदरणीय लालू जी ने रामविलास पासवान जी को राज्यसभा मेंबर बनाया था आरजेडी के कोटे से। और अब चिराग को भाई को ये तय करना है कि बंच ऑफ थॉट के पुर्जे के साथ रहेंगे या संविधान निर्माता जो बाबा साहब अम्बेडकर ने जो लिखा है उसका साथ देंगे। जो आरएसएस के बाबा, जो बाबा गोवलकर जिन्होंने बंच ऑफ थॉट्स लिखा, वो बंच ऑफ थॉट्स के साथ रहेंगे या संविधान के साथ रहेंगे, ये उनको तय करना।
All right, an important meeting is going to happen today. This is of Finance Minister Sitharaman with the US investors at this point. Nirmala Sitharaman is to meet with the US investors. COVID and its aftermath has shown India's economy's resilience is the pitch she's going to be making. But what exactly is this expected to lead to? Let's try and understand with my colleague Himanshu Shekhar joining us now. Himanshu, the fiscal situation at this point in the country, the government says, is under control and they only expect improvement from here on. But investment is going to be playing a key role into how the economy picks up from now on.
That's right, Sonal, and that is the message that Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman gave to the US investors in a meeting that was held online. And there are, in fact, 4 key points that Finance Minister had actually the big message that Finance Minister has conveyed to US investors. One, that COVID and its aftermath has shown Indian economy's resilience. The fiscal situation is under control and is expected to improve further. And there are new opportunities emerging for foreign investors with recent FDI reforms that has been initiated by the government, the privatization policy that is being taken forward, and the production-linked incentive schemes under which incentives have been offered to investors to come and invest in key sectors where there is maximum growth opportunities exist. And FM has also told the investors that the highest ever GST collection shows that the bright spot, that is a more formalization of economy and tax compliance, is actually now happening in India. And she has actually laid out a broad roadmap about the steps that government has taken to take the economic reform process forward, and is tried to project India as an attractive destination for foreign investors. So